I'm going to jog your memory today, and I'm going to do it for a reason, and I hope you'll ride along with me on this because I can promise you it's fun. Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into hockey and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates in the same place that you found this. And I'm going to take you back to whatever it is that Cincinnati's calling its football stadium this week. Seems to change a lot. It was Paul Brown Stadium, and actually, I'm not even sure that it was still Paul Brown Stadium when this happened. But again, ride with me. A couple of years ago, season opener. Now I've got your attention. Never mind that the Steelers ended up winning the game 23-20 in overtime. I just want to talk about how that first half just punched all of us in the face. Never mind what it did to poor Joe Burrow. I'm talking about the effect on us watching this. I was there covering it. You might have been there. You might have taken it in from afar, whatever. It's that feeling when that happened, when all of that was happening. Because for me, it was twofold. One, we had spent the entire summer moaning and groaning and fretting over the offense. Oh no, what about this piece? What about that? What about life without Ben Roethlisberger? What about life with Mitch Trubisky? Whereas the Bengals at the time were being built up as some sort of unstoppable, decade-long tyrants of the AFC North because they had Burrow and all those wide receivers. And what every single one of us had forgotten, I'm betting it's safe to say, is about all these people on the other side of the football and how all of these people had rendered literally every other discussion and debate to be moot. TJ Watt was everywhere. It's difficult to describe how dominant he was. Cam Hayward was just destroying people on the inside, and he didn't stay on the inside for long because he was in the backfield like that. Minkah Fitzpatrick had what I believe to this day, and we can argue about this forever, was his best game as a Steeler. I thought it was the ultimate example of Minkah's AFC Northdom, to create a term. He just becomes a different person in these AFC North matchups. He and I have joked about it, but not right after the game. We'll do it like a few days later because he's still crazy wired when he comes off. Now, look, I'm not going to omit here that TJ got hurt really badly, actually, and had to be out several weeks. So what we saw of that defense was just that one half. In fact, the second half, you might also recall, was something of a struggle, which is why the game went to overtime. But the reason I'm sharing this with you today is that it was the pressure from the inside that created this. It's the pressure from the inside that I hadn't been thinking about at all entering that stadium that day. It's the mayhem. It's the lack of answers that the Cincinnati offense had for it, especially the Cincinnati offensive line. And it's also, I dare say, the last time we saw that from this defense, that we saw the Steelers just going right up the gut at an opponent and them having no way to counter it. My friends, it's been all of 2 weeks since I have celebrated on this program the arrival of Patrick Queen to Pittsburgh. But I'm going to do it again today, okay? Because it's very much worth celebrating. I've been doing it for quite a while now, and unapologetically so. This, for me, is a game changer for this defense. Only I'm going to amend this. From this point forward, I won't be celebrating Queen without adding into the equation Peyton Wilson. Now, I don't want to put any sort of, undue pressure or whatever on the kid. He's coming in, and I understand it was because of injuries that he dropped the way he did in the draft. He's still not a high pick, and even with a high pick, you don't want to put too much pressure on them. But honestly, remember what Mike Tomlin said to me on the night that Wilson was drafted? Remember it? Because it kind of went viral. He just looked at me and said, just watch the tape. And he had this big Joker-sized grin on his face as he said that to me. And you'll never guess what I spent the better part of the next 24 hours doing. He's unbelievable. Wilson is unbelievable in terms of his pursuit, in terms of the ground he can cover, in terms of the way he can cover, the way a 2024 inside linebacker in the NFL needs to be able to do. But he also can get to the backfield. He can rip up or help rip up an offense from the middle. I don't know what kind of state Cam is going to be in. Cam is going to tell you, and he has told you this summer, that he's feeling 1,000,000,000%. The groin surgery went great. And he expects to be one of the top handful of players at his position again, as he's been for the overwhelming majority of his career. I don't know what you're going to get from Larry Ogunjobi. I'd like to think I know what you're going to get out of Keanu Benton, though. That's another havoc wreaker on the inside. And the first one that the Steelers will have had at his specific position since Javon Hargrave. This is real. This is exciting. This has nothing to do with the offense or the coordinator or the quarterbacks or the line or the wide receivers or all the stuff that, well, I do it too. All of us talk about. This can be really, really good, provided there's health. When we come back, J1Q.
This segment of Daily Shot is brought to you by our good friends at Mike's Beer Bar. They're located on Federal Street, directly across from PNC Park. Mike has more than 500 beers on tap, including from more than 50 local breweries. Stop in and say hello. Tell Mike we sent you. Mike's Beer Bar.
Today's J1Q comes from one of countless people who are apparently very poor at listening to instructions. When I ordered everybody who was old to stop listening to yesterday's episode, you didn't. You just kept going and you're bragging about it. And then from there, some of you are trying to convince me that you're cool with swag and swagger. Yeah, I got no problem with that, DK. I'm like 89 and you should see how swag I am or whatever. I mean, some of these responses were tremendous. No kidding here. And I knew everybody was going to listen. But Jay says, DK, another old guy chiming in. I'm not a fan of the big choreography numbers, but I have no issue with TJ Watt's swagger move. If I were a coach, my rule would be, you know the league rules. Behave accordingly. But if you cost the team penalties or points or whatever, prepare for my doghouse. That's a fair point to bring up. I don't know that I've heard from anybody who takes issue with TJ doing the big kick after a sack any more than they did with Brett Kiesel with the bow and arrow, if you'll recall that, toward the close of his career. And you want to know what's funny? The people who do complain about the celebrations will always cite the 1970s Steelers. Actually, they just cite the 1970s Steelers regardless. It's as if nothing else happened between now and way back then. But the cold truth is, and there are people who will remember this, that between Lynn Swann and John Stallworth, they had what might have been one of the first choreographed celebrations. Now, it wasn't much. They would just do a leap and high-five each other with their respective right hands, but it was choreographed. It wasn't pretending that the football is a baby and taking it out of the oven and some of the other stuff that we've seen, but it was choreographed. So to repeat again from yesterday, that group over that span of time, over those 6 years in which they won the 4 Super Bowls, oozed swagger. Bill was another who chimed in. Bill says, wait a minute, DK, I'm 55 and I didn't listen. Okay, now I've listened. He actually wrote it like this. Swagger fails. It falls flat if you can't back it up. See 90% of the folks on social media So forget swagger for a moment and consider the fact that you have a few men on this team who have something to prove in Russell Wilson, Najee Harris, Cam Hayward, Justin Fields, even Omar Khan himself. That's what you want. I agree with that, Bill. I spoke about that in a full episode just a few days ago. I thought that one of the things that's come up really via happenstance over this summer is that you have a lot of guys either on 1 year or expiring contracts, or they're looking toward an extension. They might get one between now and the end of training camp, but they don't have one yet. That's always a very, very healthy dynamic. Pause, says DK, prepare the arrest warrant for my violation listening to yesterday's show. I turned 72 in a few months and as always went to the end. Oh, I appreciate that, Pause. I don't care what the Steelers do within the boundaries of the rules with one important qualifier. They'd better back it up with their play. Earn that swagger. Good stuff. And by the way, several people sent stuff my way to point out that it was Eli Rogers. Remember the name that I couldn't remember? The one who showed up in like a forklift or something, some kind of, it was a forklift actually. I was actually just standing just to the left of it when he pulled up. It was Eli Rogers. And he did get cut in camp. He ended up being brought back to the team on an emergency basis. Never let it said that we're not complete around here. I appreciate all of the feedback to yesterday's episode. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Steelers, and we're going to do one more of these tomorrow.